Hey, good early morning there, Kelly. I appreciate you coming on the We Are Superman podcast. It's been a few years since you've been on. Obviously, we've talked since then, but you're in recovery mode. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, Bill. Thanks for having me, man. It's been a bit since you had me on, so I appreciate you having me back.
Yeah, for those who don't remember, Kelly was on in a two-part episode back after you ran the American Heroes run, and I found out you were running with a brand new liver. And your story is just amazing of how you've come about from those days. And I hope everybody goes back and maybe re-listens to that because it's one of the more inspirational stories we've ever had. But you were close to the end there, and somebody came through with a liver for you, and gave you a new lease on life, and it's totally changed everything in your life. And it's been remarkable to see what you've been doing since then as well.
Oh man, it's been one heck of a journey. That's who'da thunk it, you know?
Right?
Uh, yeah, it's been a pretty amazing 7 years from, sitting in the ICU, quite literally hours away from not being there as the terminology is called actively dying, where it's not passive anymore. I mean, I am now physically working on expiring to sitting here chatting with you 7 years later, gosh, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Wow, 7 years now. That's amazing. And as you said, when you woke up, the first thing you thought about was incredible gratitude. You know, your whole family that you've really had dishonored through all those years of alcoholism and other abuse had were all there for you, and you went on and founded the Gratitude and Grace Foundation that's doing great things down there in Arizona. So, tell people a little bit about what you've been doing with that foundation.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I'll talk about that to anybody who'll listen.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's called the Gratitude and Grace Foundation. And my wife and I, Jamie, founded it. Well, coming up on 2 years officially, but we've really been active in the foundation for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half now. And so those first 6 months, I didn't know what I was doing. It was paperwork and logistics and so forth. But what we do is we help community support and financial support for folks in transplant recipients and their families when they're in transplant recovery, as well as folks in some substance abuse recovery as well. And it's been amazing. Couple years, not even a couple years, but the first coming out of transplant, you said it. I mean, the word is gratitude, and it is the word that dictates my life, every day. And Jamie and I knew that we had to be able to give back in some fashion, but we really didn't know what that looked like. And so it took a couple years to figure out because I didn't talk about my story for probably the first 2 years coming out of surgery because I was still embarrassed and ashamed and all of those words that kind of go along with it. So I didn't share what I went through, but as I started to talk more and more about it, I realized I could actually help people that are either going through similar journeys or at least struggling in some fashion or another. And maybe some of the tools that I had used, because my recovery has gone unbelievably well.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, this well, and so maybe I have some tools in my tool bag that can help some other people. And so what ended up happening as I started sharing my story, Jamie started sharing her version and her view of that same path that we took, which I had really no idea because I was, sick and in and out of the hospital and surgery and so forth. Uh, and she started talking about the financial struggles that we went through while I was sick. Because, my income was gone overnight. I mean, it
Yeah.
just disappeared, right? And so you're 50% that's just out the door, but all the bills are still there. And so after we started sharing and talking about those types of things, we realized that's the role that we could play. So that's how gratitude and grace came into fruition. Was now, folks, and we have for the past, I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 months, well, at least two or three anyway. We've had one or two applications financial requests a week from folks that are in transplant recovery or wherever, and from all over the state too. It's not just been Tucson; it's been up in Phoenix and down in some of the other cities around town or around Southern Arizona, which is fantastic. I mean, we
Yeah.
help the one that there's a couple. I mean, we're proud of all of them, but the one that really had an impact on me was probably a month ago, a few weeks back. There was a lady who had a transplant. And her transplant recovery has not gone as well as mine. And she's doing okay, but she's not as healthy. It hasn't gone as well. She's still, in and out of doctors and can't work and all these different things.
Mm.
And so when they reached out to us, her electric's getting turned off. Like she
Oh,
can't afford
wow.
she can't afford to pay the past due. And now the electric company, when you were that far behind, they're like, nope, we want cash, and that's all we're gonna do. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. We're just turning off the electric. We were able to get the electric turned back on within a few days. There was some paperwork, there's some red tape.
Yeah.
We were able to get that done for her, and the heartfelt letter that we got back, like I mean, it is what it's all about,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
helping this woman and her family literally keep the lights on, So that's
Right.
what we do, financial support wise. And then the biggest thing I think I'm most proud of, with the foundation is the community that we build. Because we do a lot of different events. We just had a fundraiser last night. Chipotle has helped support us, so that we had a big fundraiser out at Chipotle. So all of us were out eating burritos yesterday.
Nice.
But the biggest thing is that community side of things, because at all of these events that we do, we invite transplant patients and people that the foundation has helped. And then we also invite all of our donors to come do whatever the event is. It could be Tumamoc 10 or one of our dinners or whatever it is. Uh, and then they get to meet,
Yeah.
which, man, that's impactful. You get the folks that we're actually helping, they get to meet the people that have done the helping,
Right.
and boy, those relationships and watching that interchange. I mean, it's pretty heartfelt, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's impressive. Yeah, no, that's incredible about the community you've built. And obviously, those are the kind of things you need to make this a self-sustaining kind of thing. I mean, I know a lot of work is going into it right
Yeah,
now. And
that'll work.
yeah,
Yeah,
so it'd be nice if it starts, building and rolling on its own. So,
yeah, that's the
um,
goal.
yeah, well, that's incredible. What a great story about that woman whose lights you turned back on, so to speak. And hopefully, there are a lot more stories like that coming.
Oh, there's quite a few. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, from whether it's utilities or mortgage or rent or surgeries. There was a lady that she had a huge infection in her wisdom teeth. And when you are a transplant patient taking immunosuppressant medications, infections are not good because
Yeah,
the body is already compromised. But the oral surgeon needed, I don't remember the total, but it was like 800 or 900 bucks, and she couldn't do it. And she was
yeah,
young, single mom, just had a transplant. I mean, she was really struggling. And so that she was actually the very first person that we helped. And the transplant coordinator called me personally on a Sunday. And we said, okay, yep, we'd love to help. This is what we're going to do. So on Monday, really Monday and Tuesday, the patient, had to fill out all the paperwork online. Jamie, my wife, drove down to the oral surgeon's office on Wednesday and paid with our Gratitude and Grace debit card,
yeah.
and then had surgery on Thursday. I mean,
Wow.
it was pretty amazing. It was pretty cool. And that was our very, very first one last. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. So if somebody is in need down there, and I take it right now you're focused in Arizona, but do the hospitals know about you, or how do people find out about the aid that you're able to provide?
Yeah, right now it's been mostly through the hospitals. The transplant teams, specifically their caseworkers or social workers, are the ones that reach out for us, or to us, I should say,
Right.
for the patient. But you can always go on the website. I mean, gratitudeandgracefoundation.org is the
Right.
website. And we're always looking for volunteers and donors and people that want to get involved. So, and then right at the very top, if you are somebody who needs help, that's
Right.
the button. You can say it says request financial assistance or something to that effect.
Very
And
cool.
you click. And right
Yeah.
now, because we are small, our focus is on those transplant patients. But the goal here in the next 5 years is to be national and not just in Arizona, and really have a good hold on not only the transplant community, but the substance abuse recovery as well, because that's obviously how I put myself in this mess in the first place.
Right.
So we want to help those folks as much as we can as well.
Yeah. So what kind of volunteer opportunities do you folks look for?
Sure. Yeah, mostly at our events, right? So, and
Uh-huh.
we have all sorts. Like I said, yesterday was pretty easy because it was Chipotle that did all the work.
Right.
We just went out and enjoyed some good food. But like for example, our Tumamoc 10 that we did back in March, there's a hill, for those that don't know, there's a hill out in Tucson called the Tumamoc Hill. And it is a Tucson landmark. I mean, it's
Right.
right downtown. It is sacred to the Tohono O'odham Nation. Down here, Tumamoc actually means horned lizard, and there and it's a mile and a half up to the top, or just about 1.4, with about 750 feet of elevation gain. So it's a good. There's a couple of good steep treks there, where they're
Yeah.
20 grades or whatever it is. And so what we do is every March, which is my liverversary, as we like to call it in my house,
Right.
uh, we go trek this hill. And for some of us crazies, we'll do it 10 times, which ends up being a 50K if you do all 10, or just about a 50K if you do all
Right.
10. But the whole goal on that particular day is not to do all 10, right? I mean, some of us are going to, but the goal is to push yourself further than you think you can do. So if somebody thinks they can do one, or that's their PR, we're going to get you up twice. And
Yeah.
if last year you did four, well, this year you're doing five. That's kind of
Right.
the goal to it, until we get more and more people that are doing it all day. And what we do is we start each ascent every hour on the hour. So at
Ah,
7 o'clock, we all go, we take a big group picture, yay, 10, 9, 8, 7, yay, and then off we go. And we do that 7, 8, 9, all the way through. And there's always volunteer opportunities there, right? We need people to help, hand out bibs or hand out food. Or next year, we're going to have an aid station at the top, is my vision for it. So you can get some water and some food or whatever gels
oh
up
yeah,
top.
you need to for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have, it's going to be even bigger. This year was our biggest one yet. Next year is going to be even bigger than that. So I think this year we had close to 100 people that were out visiting with us and
Right.
out running. Next year, my goal is 150, so signed up, registered actual athletes that are going up and down. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. That's also so you're doing it kind of big backyard style there, every hour on
Yeah.
the hour like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not a race, because there's some ultra runners here in town that are just beasts, and they're going up and down this thing like it's nothing, And
Right.
that hill is one of my favorite places, but I struggle going up and down that hill. It's steep,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing it 10 times. It's hot outside,
Oh
in
yeah.
March. Uh, but the whole it's an endurance event, and it's about that community, because
Right.
what ends up happening is you get people that are out at the hill just as a normal, they're just going to hang out at the hill for that Saturday. And they see all these crazy people that have been there all day going up and down, and they're talking and hooting and hollering, and they're running down and hiking up. And then they catch wind of what we're doing.
Hmm.
Uh, Last year, I don't remember the number back in March, but we had quite a few folks that signed up at the event itself because they saw what we were doing. So
Oh
they
wow.
did the 25 bucks, they got themselves a bib, and up they went. So it was
Right.
pretty, yeah,
That's
pretty,
awesome. Yeah. You say 10 times. Did people, some of these ultra runner crazies, as you call them, they're not crazies. They're normal people to me. But did anybody
no, we're
just
not.
say,
We're
"Hey,
crazy. We're
I'm gonna
not
keep
normal.
going"? Yep. But they just say that, "Hey, I'm gonna keep going until I tap out," basically.
Haven't had anybody do that yet, but I have a feeling that's in the back of my mind, is that the hill officially is open from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m.,
Okay.
where you're legally allowed to go
Right.
up and down the hill. I've always been curious, like, well, how many can I get in those 18 hours? I wonder,
Right.
where you go up and down and just keep on trekking. I don't know if there might be a record. I don't even know, an FKT, so to speak,
Right.
for it. But I haven't had anybody do it on that specific day yet for Tumamoc 10. But it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You get some of these guys out here that want to just keep on pushing and see if they can get 50 miles versus the 30.
Right. Right. Well, I know it's your regular course, so to speak. So, I mean, if anybody should have the FKT, you should, Kelly. I mean, I
Well,
mean, you had
there's
a
a lot of people that go out to that hill, and some, like I said, beast athletes that are up and down that hill, that they do a good job. So I don't know if I'll get the FKT, but I'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, but I'm thinking endurance FKT or something,
Right.
because I mean, you had a stretch there where you were trying to do it. You had some endurance mark on there. You
Yeah, I
were
was
going for
I,
like every
I was
day or
going for
whatever.
500 in a year, which
Right,
was about 9.5 times a week. Which, if I didn't work and didn't have, responsibilities, or, a wife at home and kids and all that good, like, if I didn't have that, sure, I think I could have pulled that off. But trying to fit it
yep,
in at, 3 in the morning in July, because that's the only time that it's nice enough outside that you can go hike up and down this hill.
right.
Yeah, I got over 100, but then injuries, and then I was training for javelina and other things kind of took precedence. But over 100 in the first couple 3 months wasn't bad. I was pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 in the morning. Come on, that doesn't interfere with family life. I mean,
It doesn't. Yeah,
no,
they're
that's
all
perfect.
asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the time to do it. Get back when they're up at 6, and then you can have coffee and breakfast, and then go off on your day.
right, right.
It's that
Oh
it's
man,
that it's that darn sleep gets in the way of my training.
totally. It gets in the way of everything, really. I can't, well, I've kind of circumvented that problem anyway. I don't sleep much, so
Right.
yeah, so that's cool. Well, great. So, you started out, you got out of your own transplant surgery, the liver transplant, we should mention if we hadn't already. And you started embarking on this ultra marathon career, whatever you want to call it here. I mean, it's not a career because you're working and everything at the same
It's a
time.
rabbit hole is the way I describe it.
Yeah,
On this ultra running rabbit hole that I've dove headfirst into.
right. Well, I'm trying to think I'm not sure if I like rabbit holes so much. I'm just trying to think what
Yeah,
pit
I don't know
we've all
what we'll
jumped
call it, but
into. I don't
that's
know.
just because you keep going further and further, like Alice in Wonderland. You just keep falling down.
Well, I'm thinking more like snake pit or something,
There you
That's
go. Fair enough. I like it.
Yep. But you came up and did the American Heroes run, your attempt at 100 miles there, and then you've kind of done, javelina, things like that. But then and talk a little bit about that before you decided to jump
Sure.
into this Arizona Monster, which is a brand new race, which just when I thought it's getting ridiculous, we're doing 200-mile races as a quote regular thing now, and here pops up this 300-mile race.
Right.
And it's no easy 300 miler either. I was looking at, the course and description. It's like, this is not just a 300 laps on a 1 mile track or something like, the jackpot or something.
Right. No, we went up over mountains, but yeah, so yeah, we could dive back. So it started in 2020. I wasn't a run. I played competitive sports growing up,
Right.
but I was not a runner. I didn't like running. I didn't understand marathons. I honestly, in my 20s and 30s, swore I'm not running a marathon. That's ridiculous. You know how
Well,
far that
unless it was to the liquor store and back. Yeah.
is? Correct. Yeah, that I'd have
Yeah.
gone. I'd have figured out a way to get there. Yeah, if my
Right.
base was 26.2 miles away, I'd have figured it out.
Yeah.
But in 2020, I decided I wanted to run 100 miles. I read Charlie Engel's book, Running Man.
Yeah.
And somehow that Leadville, which is still on the list, I still have Leadville's logo in my office right above my computer because that's on the list. I figured once I run Leadville, I can retire, right? That's the pinnacle. Even if I only make it to Hope Pass, I'm call it good.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Well, you got to
but
go over hope. Got to go over hope.
okay, we'll get over Hope and then and
Okay.
then and then and then make a decision, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you got to get over Hope. I suppose that's true. Uh, but then, so my first attempt at 100 miles was David's race, was in your race, American
Hmm.
Heroes Run, because I had read both of David's books, David Clark, for those that are listening,
Yep.
and read both of his books. And I really wanted that to be my first 100 miler, right? Because I truly related to his story. I mean, there was a lot of similarities between not only journey, but personalities a little bit, all those different things. And that's how we got to meet back in
Right.
2022, I guess it was, when I went up there to give that one a shot and didn't make it. Spoiler alert, I DNF'd at mile 85 or so, is what I ended up for that day. But, and in
Still
my
not
defense,
shabby. Yep.
oh no, it was a great
Yeah. Yeah.
day. I'll
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
it. Before the monster, that was still my PR, right?
Yeah.
And so, and in my defense, the week leading up to that race out in it's Longmont, right, is where it's at.
Yes. Yep.
Um, it was 95 to 100 degrees, sunshine and hot, and I'm going perfect. That's what I've been training all summer. Like I'm
Right.
gonna crush this thing. And then you had one of those Colorado storms roll in on that Friday, and it was 40 degrees and sleeting for the next 20 hours, which
Uh-huh.
I am not used to. I don't have the gear for. My
Right.
waterproof rain jacket was soaked. And so one of the guys, and I don't remember his name, at about 2 in the morning that was running the aid station, kind of pulled me for the course for a little bit and sat me down, got me changed out of my wet clothes, had some coffee, and I sat there for about 2 hours or whatever it was. Tried to sleep. I don't think I did. Uh, and then got me back out on the course once I got warmed back up because I mean my dexterity was gone. I was shivering and couldn't function my flasks and, all those different things. So
Yeah.
um, ended up with about 85 miles, which is a good day. I mean, that was significantly further than I had gone. And like I said, it was my PR up until 2 weeks ago. And then a year later, I gave javelina an attempt and ended up with a little over 100K. But I had shin splints for the first and knock on wood, only time so far uh, that started developing on lap two. And then I went out for lap three. And when I got back, I mean, I couldn't hardly lift my foot and I was starting to trip and
Yeah.
fall on rocks. And it got to be where it just, you know, in the moment, it felt like the right decision. Like I'm going to fall and I'm going to hurt myself because I can't lift my foot. I'm kicking things. The 2020 hindsight that you always have with those decisions is, oh, I could have kept going. Like it would have been
Yeah.
fine, you
Right.
know. So, but nonetheless, that led me all the way to the monster a couple weeks back. And when Candace Burke, it's Destination Trail Races. It was their
Right.
newest addition to her portfolio. Um, she had hinted about it on her Instagram page probably 2 years ago or something. I don't remember the timeline, but something along those lines. And when she finally announced it in November of 23, I guess it would have been around there, I was sitting downstairs in my recliner and I was on her page and watching this announcement for this Arizona Monster. Jamie, my wife, was walking downstairs, and as she comes around into the living room, I looked at her and went, "Here's the deal. I'm running this race. It's all there is. I'm not asking, like, this is what I'm going to do. And I may not make it 20 miles, 50 miles, or I might finish the whole thing, but I'm doing this race because it's in my backyard. I mean, at one point in the race, we were 4 miles from my house
Oh,
and it was
wow.
middle of the night. Now, that was a big decision because we were 210 miles in or something like that. We have 90 miles to go on day number 5 or 4. And I'm 4 miles from my bed and a shower
That's
and
not good.
hot food. And so we did. We took a little break. There's a little cove, so we sat down to grab a bite to eat. And I'm like, this we can't sit here for very long. I can't. This is. I mean, I run this route weekly.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, so I told Jamie that I was running this race, and then we worked on it for the next year and a half, and ended up towing the start line on April 4th. This
Right.
back, which is pretty cool.
So this race was announced a year and a half in advance.
Yeah, it was announced. You couldn't
Wow. Okay.
register until about a
Yeah.
year before, but it was announced about a year and a half, give or take. I mean, I don't remember the exact timeline, but something like that. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that. So you decided to run this race, and obviously you had to do something about your training there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and what ended up happening in 2024, I don't know when I hurt my knee, but I had hurt my knee. And like most of us who have knee pain and I didn't know what was wrong with it at the time, you just kind of power through it. It's those little pains that
Right.
like, it'll be fine. It'll go away. My knees hurt. It's just the way it is, right?
Yep.
Well, I did that, and then I would run. I did Whiskey Basin. I didn't do the 90K. I did whatever the 60K or whatever it is, and that's up in Prescott, Arizona,
Right.
uh, and that really kind of hurt my knee pretty good. And that was April of 24. And so I took some time off training and figured we're going to give it some rest. And then I was signed up for javelina. And so then back in June, I'm like, all right, we got to start training for javelina. And then my mileage increased, and then my knee would hurt, and so I dropped back down. And so then I
Uh,
again, and then I dropped back down. And finally, about 2 months before javelina, maybe not even that long, maybe 6 weeks before javelina, I finally went, I can't train for this. Like I got to drop. Knee still wasn't better. So in October of 24, I finally bit the bullet and went and had meniscus tears surgery. And he went and cleaned up some of the arthritis and bone spurs and all that different stuff.
mm,
And that's 6 months before I'm supposed to go do 300 miles. And I told my doc, who thinks we're crazy, right? Um, I said, I have to have this done now because I got to start training for this. And
yeah.
so he was great. I went in after about a week after my surgery, which he did a great job. I mean, he cleaned everything up. I mean, obviously it's functioning pretty good. I went in for my follow-up a week later, and the doc is talking to me, and he goes, look, you're not gonna damage any of the work that I've done. You can't hurt your knee. You can re-injure it, but the work that I have done, you can't damage it by going out and training. He said, but what you can do is go run 5 miles today, and then your knee's going to swell up like this, and then you're going to be a month behind because it's going to take a month for the swelling to go down, and then you're going to be a month behind in your training. So I'm telling you right now, don't. And so we kind of sat there silently for, a good 10 or 15 seconds. And I was nodding my head. And I looked at him and went, so 4 miles is the number then.
Nice.
And he just shook his head at me. Uh,
Yeah,
but he thought we were pretty great. I actually have a picture I'm going to give him because he wanted a finish line photo.
sweet.
I got to go drop that off to him here soon.
Every time I see my orthopedic surgeon, he starts off everything he says to me with a certain phrase. I know he's not conscious he's doing it. Probably the same thing yours says to you. He says, I know the way you are, so
Yes, exactly. Well, when the surgeons look at you and go, well, I mean, you're just going to have to stop running. Yeah, man, we're going to find a different solution, or I'm just going to find a different doctor. Like that, that's not an option. Not yet.
yeah.
Like that, I'm not doing that yet. So,
Those are the exact words I tell any doc who says to me, well, maybe you should bike or swim. I say, you tell
no.
me that again, I'm gonna find a different doctor.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
and no hard feelings. If you don't think it's best, there's a doctor out there that's a runner that understands somewhere,
right. Yep,
you know? And the big thing too is I'm not elite. I'm not trying to win these things. Like I
right.
just need you to make my knee function to move forward. That's all I need, you know?
Sure.
I'm not winning a gold medal, man. It's okay. Like I'm not gonna.
All right. So we got you all cleaned up then, and you're
Yep.
back to running 4 miles at a time. And
Correct. Well, that's basically where we started.
right.
December, December of 24, that's when the training really started because my surgery was at the end of October. We took a couple weeks just completely off. And then November
Yep.
was slowly integrating back in. December 1st was really when mileage started to actually increase and maybe some vertical gain
Right.
and all that stuff. Because, yeah, the Arizona Monster was 304 miles. We had something around 40,000 feet of elevation gain, something like that. But what drew me to this race is and now 200-mile plus races
Right.
um, is they play to my strengths, right? I'm not fast, and I know it, and it's okay.
Right.
I don't claim to be quick. And even in 100 milers, you still have to hurry. Like you still got to run, you still got to be quick to get through 100 milers. And I know, people listen and they hear 18-minute miles is the pace that you got to keep, which is true.
Yeah.
But that includes any bathroom breaks or aid stations or anything else like that. And the vert doesn't matter, right? So you got to
Nope.
account for those paces.
Oh yeah.
And so you still got to hurry, right? However, with the 304 miles, we had 7 hours, or excuse me, 7 days plus 2 hours was the cutoff.
Yeah.
So that math equaled about 44 miles a day. And I'm like, man, I can do 44 miles a day in a 24-hour stretch, including all of the rest or aid stations or anything along those lines. Like
Yep.
I can
Oh
do
yeah.
that because I love hiking. We have mountains, not quite Colorado mountains, but we have mountains around Tucson shoot, I would be out there every day if I could.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's what really drew me to this race. So, training for it for the next 3 months, that's what I did. I didn't do any, speed work. I worked with Kylie out at Desert Peak Coaching, and so we didn't do any speed work at all. Well, I can't say at all, but minimal
Right.
anyway. It was more just how much time on my feet and how much vert can you gain. That was the kind of the concept for the training plan. And each week, mileage increased
Right.
as through. And I'd mix in some 50Ks, races, because if you're going to have a long run on a Saturday for 30 whatever miles, you might as well get a medal and a t-shirt out of the deal.
And have it catered. Right.
Yeah, and it's not self-supported. I don't have to go do,
Right.
water drops in the middle of the desert,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we mixed in a few of those. And training went really, really well. And
Nice.
I felt good about my training. And it's life happens. So my training plan was not perfect. Mine never is. There's always something that,
Nobody's is. Nobody's.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's always something that comes up, work or family or whatever. Or the day where you're just like, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
Um,
Catch a cold here or there, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
and so
so
I felt pretty good about it.
yeah, I mean, you said you're going to average 44 miles a day. Was kind of your plan.
Well, it
Did you
wasn't the
go
plan.
out?
That was the minimums. That
The
the plan,
minimums. Okay.
the minimum was 44.
Yeah. So did you have those days where you said, hey, we're going to go out and do 50 miles today? Just go out and do 50 miles today.
Never did a 50-mile day, but we would
Right.
have a block where we would do like a 60-mile weekend, where
Okay.
we do a Friday night, 10-mile out in the desert. Actually, again, the benefit of being able to train for this specific race is the actual route course is in my backyard. So I'd
Right.
go do 10 miles on the AZT on a Friday night, and then Saturday wake up early and go do a whatever it might have been a 25 miler on that Saturday.
Hmm.
And Sunday bang out a 15. So do those blocks where it's hopefully a bit sleep deprived, and then do some longer mileages on those days. And so I never did a 50-mile day itself, but had some big weekends mixed in there.
Yeah. So you practiced running at night. You
Mhm.
practiced sleep deprivation. Did you practice like actually just, hey, I'm going to go take a dirt nap out on the trail
I
sometime?
didn't practice that, but boy, I'm good at it now. Like
Yeah.
I didn't practice that, but boy, I can fall asleep right here while we're talking if you need me to, like just right here.
Well,
Uh,
that's a rare talent right there. Yeah.
there's some fun stories. It was I ended up meeting a gentleman named Robbie. We met at mile 100 and something, uh, and hit it off. And we started chatting and kind of telling our life stories as we're climbing Mount Lemon. And then we decided we're going to finish this thing together. So we spent 200 miles together. And
Wow.
he called them fivers. He had done Cocodona the year before. He was actually DFL at Cocodona back in 24.
Wow.
And it was a dual DFL where they both
Yep.
crossed, basically holding hands as they're crossing the finish line.
Yeah, as people who don't know, that's dead fucking last,
Yep.
right?
Dead
Which
fucking last.
I've been in those shoes before. Yep.
Oh, me too.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, he called them fivers. And he said, you were talking about it. He goes, you tell your pacer or your crew, whoever you're with, as you're, deliriously stumbling down the trail, I need a fiver, which is lay down on the dirt for 5 minutes and that's all you get.
Right.
Uh, and then back up and off we go. And man, those fivers are amazing. The first one I struggled with, because I couldn't get comfortable and wouldn't be able to fall asleep. And then the second one, it was, I mean, as soon as your head hits, or my head hit the dirt, you're out, and you're in REM sleep, like you're dreaming,
Yeah.
and you're out. The one, I don't remember what day it was, but we're with our pacer Molly, who was pacing us. We're taking a 5 minute dirt nap, and we're actually in the city at this point. So we're on a paved bike path just off on that,
Hmm. Yeah.
and we're taking this dirt nap. And I kind of sat up, and I've got like drool running down my face, as we're coming. I woke up and I'm wiping my face. And went, oh my God, Molly, how long was I asleep? And she goes, 4.5 minutes. Oh, okay, off we go. And so then we took off and went again.
That just amazes me. I mean, first of all, as I mentioned, I'm such a bad sleeper. I can't imagine being able to just lay down anywhere. I mean, obviously you're at the point of exhaustion, but
Right.
I always hear those stories about how, 5 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it feels like, hey, you got 6 hours of sleep or
Yeah.
whatever. And I just picture getting up. I mean, aren't you like so just disoriented? Like, where am I? It's like, I
I
mean,
really wasn't.
yeah,
That's it. I was amazed at some of the experiences, that being one of them. No, other than short of that specific story where I was really worried I'd slept a lot longer.
right,
No, you wake up and and I'll talk about my feet, which were rough. So it took me a bit to get the train going again, right?
right.
But no, I knew exactly where I was and where we were headed and what our goals were for that particular day or section that we were in. Because that was something that Robbie and I think, did really well as we would plan as we're coming into whatever aid station, how much time we're going to spend there, what the plan is, when we're going to meet, and when we're leaving. And for the most part, we stuck to those plans.
Right.
But yeah, you wake up and off you go, and you're off and heading down the trail some more.
Yeah. How much did you sleep total, would you guess?
I am guessing about 12 hours or so
Wow.
in those almost 7 days. It took me just under seven to get it done.
Right.
Um, I'm guessing 12. I don't know that for fact. But there were a handful of hour and a halves, hour long at aid stations,
Right.
either on the ground or in like the back of the crew car. My wife, Jamie, would meet me at certain aid stations when the crew was there,
Right.
which both of us, as we debriefed about this race, we're going to do something different. And the
Yeah.
car was not comfortable at all. There's a better way for me to get some rest for an hour in the back of the car. We have to set that up a little bit better. But I didn't know what I was doing. I said, "Yeah, it sounds good. I can sleep anywhere." And
Yeah.
which is true. However,
As
we
you
can get
learned.
more
Yep.
practical sleep.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, I'm
Yep.
guessing about 12, give or take.
Yeah, well, that really shows amazing, what your body's capable of doing there. I mean, you think about that, 12 hours over, almost 7 days.
Mhm.
That's less than 2 hours a day, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, very much so. And that was something that I really took away from this race. And you hear I had heard other podcasts and other ultra runners talk about, it's amazing what your body will do when you ask it.
right.
Um, I, Having now lived that statement, it is truly amazing. My body held up great. My legs were great. My knees didn't hurt, which I was worried about,
Sure.
especially coming down Mount Lemon. There were some steep descents coming down that for a few miles. And Arizona trails are rocky and technical, and you can't get good. Well, I'm sure the elites do. I can't get good rhythms when you're running. Um, but man, my body held up great. My mind, for the most part, held up pretty good. Don't get me wrong, there were some moments mixed in there. The only thing that really struggled were my feet. Uh,
Yeah,
but even them, my feet were pretty wrecked starting about probably mile 70 or so. So on day
right.
number two, uh, where my feet were really starting to bug me. And as we're coming in, so the last day, Thursday, the 10th, I guess it was, we were leaving the aid station at, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 1 in the morning. And that prior day, my feet were really bad. And they were now starting to affect pace. They were starting to affect my, shuffling. I'm going slower. I am limping. They're this big around. My crew actually had to buy three new sets of shoes during the race, each a size bigger or a half a size bigger and wides.
Right, right.
I could fit my feet in them. They were that swollen.
Wow.
And so on that second to last day or third to last day, that Wednesday, my feet were really starting to affect how we were
Yeah,
doing. And so as we're leaving that aid station, I had an actual conversation with my feet because we had 36 miles
right.
to cover that day. And I wanted to be it was the Casablanca aid station, which was 16 miles from the finish. It was the last
Hmm.
checkpoint, last aid
Right.
station, the last cutoff. And I said, we are getting there on Thursday night. We're getting there Thursday evening. I wanted to get there about 6. We ended up about 7 or so because the heat, and we can talk about that a little bit. The heat slowed us down that day.
Yeah,
But I had an actual conversation with my feet. Like, look, here's the deal, fellas. You will function today, and it's going to hurt.
right.
And I know it, and I'm sorry, but you are going to operate in normal fashions. You're going to step normal, you're going to walk normal, that you're going to run normal if we can. Like that's all there is to it. You don't have a choice. And all I need from you is to get to that aid station by tonight. That's
Yeah,
it. Once we're there, you can do whatever you want. I don't really care because we have 16 miles and 24 hours to get there. Like that's fine.
yeah,
And they did, and they held up. Because and the way that I describe it, the swelling in my feet, it felt like this gritty, um, crystal filled liquid in my feet that as soon as I stopped, it would coagulate in my joints and in my bones, and cramp, and it really hurt. And then it would take quite a few steps for me to massage that liquid back out of
yeah.
my feet so that we could keep going.
Oh, that's bizarre.
It didn't feel great. Uh, and so what I would do as we were on that, especially that last day, that the I don't know, you can call it a mantra that was going through my head was every rock you step on is like a little mini foot massage. And everybody likes a good foot massage. So let's go find
Right.
some. And so that's what I would do is we would go just, and I didn't tell my crew or Robbie or anybody about it. I just was stepping on rocks, kind of massaging the balls of my feet, which is probably why it still hurts
Right,
2 weeks later.
right.
I'm sure there's an
Well,
injury.
I'm amazed you could make, when you said every rock, I was thinking, oh man, I was thinking back to one of my Leadvilles where every rock was just so painful because I
Uh-huh.
just taken all the skin off the bottom of my feet. And
Oh,
I just dreaded the rocks. And I still remember coming off the boulevard, which is the last dirt section before you get on 6th Street, which is the last mile to the finish line, and it's paved. And I was thinking the whole time, oh, I can't wait till I get to the pavement. That'll be so much better for my feet. And then I got up there and found out, nope, that's worse. But, obviously got through, but still, I'm thinking you're saying, oh, these rocks are going to be hideous. And instead you're telling me it's a foot massage. I'm like,
Well,
what?
it was that mindset,
Right.
that I had to go through. We met one another runner as we're going through, and he goes, man, he's watching me, try to function through these rocks, and he goes, man, what's going on? How are you doing that? I don't understand how you're doing it. And I went, there's a lot of David Goggins-esque type conversations going on in my head right now,
Yeah.
but we made it through. You know,
Right.
it somehow worked.
Somehow. Right. Yeah.
Uh,
You mentioned you had your crew with you. So Jamie was there and,
Yeah, yeah. So Jamie was the crew captain. I had five total.
okay.
Amy was kind of helping organize, and she would help drive people to and fro and all that good stuff. And then I had four different pacers with me, friends of mine who are all ultra runners. My first guy, Christian, he helped me actually up and down Mount Lemon. So he did a 53-mile stretch with us. And
Nice.
Mount Lemon, for those that don't know, is a mountain range. It's in the Catalinas north of Tucson. Mount Lemon, the peak is about 9,200, 9,300 is the peak. And so we climbed up to a little bit below that, probably 87. But the climb on the Arizona Trail on the north side of the mountains, it's about 6,000 feet of vert and about a 10-mile stretch as you're
Hmm.
climbing up there. So it's
That's
good.
pretty good. Yep.
And there are some steep sections on this. They call it a road. It, it's not a road,
Right.
right? It is blown up rock that they laid out, so that Jeeps can pass over it. Um, but traveling over it on foot where those rocks, as you're massaging my feet going up, um, that's a good chunk of that. And then you start climbing this ridge line as you go up into the mountains. And we had some winter storms, you know, Arizona versions of winter storms uh, the day before. So we didn't have any snow, or not the day before, the week before, excuse me. We didn't have any snow, but it was super cold and windy, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Uh, and that particular day with Christian, when he got to me, when I picked him up anyway, he was at a couple of different aid stations. He actually surprised me at mile 75 at the Freeman aid station. I wasn't planning on having any crew there. I was going to meet him at the next one at Tiger Mine
Yeah.
at 105. But him and his wife met me up there and brought me an Impossible Whopper, which I had never had.
Right.
That might have been the best burger I've ever eaten in my life. Like I'm sitting there, throwing back this Whopper, going, "This is delicious." But then we ended up meeting up at 105, mile 105, which is where the pacing picked up. And so we're traveling through, and as we start climbing Mount Lemon, that's where we bumped into Robbie. And so as we're going through, that was day number three or night number three. As we're going through, and right about dusk is when the hallucinations really started kicking in on that third night.
All right.
Yeah, there were some good ones on that day. I had some before. I had more auditory hallucinations prior to that than actual visual ones, where I would hear voices and conversations. I couldn't make out the words just off trail, right? There's people
Yeah.
talking just off trail. That there, of course, weren't anybody there, or wasn't anybody there. But I hadn't had any real, truly visual ones until we started climbing this ridge, and we're kind of climbing up like this, and we bend to the right, and I jumped, and I was second in line of the three of us. So Christian was in front, then there was me and Robbie was behind me, and I jumped and stepped back almost off the trail. Because I looked down and my first thought was, why is there a 3 foot long yellow corn snake in the middle of Mount Lemon? They don't live here, right? And it was this long yellow slithering snake right in the
Yeah.
middle of the trail. And that happened in a split second. And I'm looking down at this thing trying to figure out why it's there, and I can hear the other two chuckling.
Right.
So as we're chuckling, I looked down and went, that's not a snake, is it? And it was an agave leaf. So
Okay.
don't know, it's a big cactus that lives here, and they have, century plant stalks. Anyway, it was an agave leaf that was yellow, that was
Hmm.
in the middle of the trail, and I'm staring at this thing, and it's moving, like it is slithering. I can see it now. It's not
Right.
making any ground. It's not traveling, but it's working at it. And so that's when I realized, okay, some of these things that I am seeing are not actually there. That visual cortex of mine is playing some tricks.
Yeah. Now, a good hallucination is if that snake was talking to you too.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, no, none of the hallucinations actually talked. They all.
Okay.
The next one was probably my favorite because it was the most just asinine hallucination that I had the entire time. Well, that's not true. One of them, I had one later down the way that was a ninja that was pulling on a branch, which was kind of weird. But go down the trail, a couple 3/10 of a mile or whatever it was, and I tapped Christian on the shoulder. I said, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tell you what I see, and you're gonna tell me what it actually is." And so
Okay.
as I look across, I saw this, and I want you to imagine kind of a Disneyland Muppet mascot suit, right? The bottom half was a bumblebee, complete, stripes and a big stinger. The top half of this 6 foot mascot was a beekeeper, complete with the helmet mask thing they
Yeah.
wear. And she was bending over to pick something up. I don't know what she was picking up. And so I described this to Christian, and it's vivid. I mean, I could draw it for you if you want me to show you what it looked like. And I'm describing this to Christian, and he just kind of very deadpan looked at me and goes, "Yeah, man, that's a tree stump. Let's go. We can keep moving." So, and then that just sort of happened is that throughout the rest of it, especially that night, there was more and more. There was a tiki guy behind a kind of a kid that was praying at an altar at one point off in the distance. Yeah, there were some strange ones, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's interesting. You were conscious enough to know you were in a race with other people, but you still saw these things and were able to describe them. And do you
Yeah.
have an innate fear of bees or something? Or
No, no, no,
no?
no. I like bees. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why that was what popped up. I'm not scared of snakes. I'm the guy that goes and catches the snake.
Yeah,
In fact, my daughter, the day of the race or whatever, because I am the guy in the neighborhood that people will call to come pick up their snakes, in their yards or at work or whatever.
right.
And so I sent the tracking to my daughter, and she knew we were doing this race, and she knows we're out in the desert for the whole week. And that was her advice to me. It wasn't like stay hydrated, make sure you get enough rest, which is the normal advice that you get from people.
Yeah.
She said, "Dad, don't pick up the snakes." Oh yeah, I don't know why there was a snake there, or a bumblebee mascot.
Right.
Yeah, why that's the vision that popped up. But it was an interesting fact. Like I was definitely aware enough and conscious enough that I knew that those weren't real,
Yeah.
um, and I knew where I was, but they were visually. I mean, that's what I was looking at. Like they weren't pretend. Yeah, it was interesting. And why that happened, I don't know. And that was really the only night that they were super, super vivid like that.
Yeah.
The other nights, they were there, but they weren't nearly as ornate or imaginative as they were that third night.
Yeah. So the other nights were just letdowns. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I got enough sleep after that. I don't know. I hadn't had much at that point. I only had about an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever,
Yeah.
on the up to that third night.
Sure. Sure. Wow. Yeah, I know when I've run Leadville, I've told my crew pacers, whatever, said I do tend to hallucinate sometimes. And there was one year, it was my high school cross country team, and the kids were so disappointed because I didn't have any hallucinations during the
I didn't
race.
see anything.
Yeah, they were like, "Cool, we're looking forward to that, coach." But yeah, there was one time, yeah, we were coming into Leadville, and I said, "Oh wow, I think we're getting close to the finish line because I can see buildings up ahead." And my pacer just kind of like deadpan, like, "No, coach, I think you're
Right,
looking at power lines or something, but
right,
there's no buildings there." It's like, okay,
right.
oh
Yeah,
well,
it's amazing how that sleep deprivation plays those tricks on your mind.
yeah, without a doubt. So you're allowed pacers after mile 105 or so, you
Correct.
said,
That's when
yeah,
you can pick them up. Yeah, you can pick up pacers at mile 105. And then I had pacers set for the rest of the time. And so Christian finished that 53 miler. We got down up to Mount Lemon was really Mount Lemon was the first for real goal, right? Because the
right,
cutoffs leading up to that, especially for us back of the Packers, they were pretty strict getting up to Mount Lemon. Like they definitely became more lenient as the
mm,
second half of that race.
right,
And so that was really, we got up to Mount Lemon and it was super hard. We didn't get up there until probably 1 in the morning. And we had left the Tiger Mine aid station probably about noon or so. So it took us 12 hours to go those 23 miles or whatever it was. And so when we got up there about 1 in the morning, and once I got settled, Maybe it was when I woke up. I don't remember when we were leaving, but that was the first point that I allowed myself to think, holy shit, I could actually pull this off, you know?
Right.
Because and it was funny. I told Molly, one of my pacers in my crew, and one of my very good friends, I mentioned that to her, and she goes, "What are you kidding me? That's the first time?" You know,
Right.
because you're supposed to think you can finish this thing before you start, which I did, but that was the first time in the race that I actually went, man, now if I can just keep doing what I'm doing, we're gonna do this thing, which was pretty cool. That was a good checkpoint for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I was going
Uh,
to ask you when obviously you pushed way beyond your previous limits. And so I was going to ask you, at what point did it start dawning on you like, wow, I've just like broken through and yet I got a lot more left.
yeah, and that was the time where it
Yeah.
really dawned on me. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew it was the night before. I was with two other gentlemen, and we were in the middle of nowhere in the Black Hills when I got past mile 86. Tom was one of the guys. He was from Australia, and then Dr. Malachi was. It's amazing all the people you meet, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
in these races. Anyway, that was when I hit my PR, and I told him, I say, hey, we're going to pause for a second. I take a picture of my watch. Uh, every step that I take from here on out is a new PR,
Right.
which is pretty cool to celebrate that. And pretty crazy to think you're not even a third of the way done with this race, at that point.
Right.
And
And
so,
your watch is probably dying too, because
well,
you not last your watch.
I got a good watch, so that's one. But I did have to charge it a number of times, overnight.
Okay.
So Jamie brought the charger and some batteries, and so I was able to charge it a few times. Um, but yeah, that top of that Mount Lemon was the first time where it really dawned on me, like we're gonna do this thing. I feel good. I have energy. We have a good game plan. And I think actually teaming up with Robbie really, really helped that because prior to that, I was struggling with pace. Prior to the race, I had made this game plan, the monster game plan that I given my crew, my pacers, and it was, all right, this is where we're going to be at this time, and this is the aid station. These are the goals that we're going to set, and all of it they were okay paces. Like none of it was trying to overextend myself. I wasn't trying to win this thing or finish in 4 days. I mean, I was giving myself
Right.
the whole time. But that blew up on well, really day number one, but it really blew up on day number two, where I texted my crew that morning on day two, when I'm supposed to have a 100K day. That was the goal. Day two was my biggest day. And about 2 hours into day two, I'm texting them going, this isn't going to happen. Like, there's no way. I didn't account for the vertical climbing. I didn't account for the sleep deprivation. Like, I'm not keeping this 20-minute pace that I need to keep.
Right.
And when you're keeping a 25-minute pace, those extra 5 minutes over the course of 100K, 65 miles, they add up like
Magnifies, sure.
correct. Uh, and I was really inside my own head on that day number two, thinking I got to get back on pace, and I was beating myself up that I'm not doing what I said I was going to do, and there's no way I can't finish it. Blah 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 blah. You know how your mind starts to talk.
Yeah.
Uh, and we have a group chat with all the pacers and the crew, and two of them, Christian and Molly, actually were the two, were very blunt and stern, which is exactly what I needed at the time because they were like, what are you worried about? We'll take care of us. Your only job is to get to the next A station before cutoff. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about anything else. We'll take care of the rest. And it took a couple of those conversations for me to really get out of my own head and realize that is my only job. They let them
Mm,
do their thing. I am no longer in
right.
charge. They are. Uh, my job is to get to the next aid station with enough time to get something to eat and leave. That's it.
Right.
And that was a good turning point. That was coming out of the Grand Enchantment aid station. So that was a good mindset shift as well. And then yeah, and with the Pacers too, it was interesting how each one had a different segment, right? But the temperature swings were big. Coming
Mm,
up on Mount Lemmon, which at that 9,000 feet, I mean, I don't know what the temps were, but it were low 30s and windy. To the very next day, we're on the loop, which is a paved bike path that goes all the way around Tucson, and
right.
it was damn near 100 degrees. It was hot, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
That's just in a 36-hour stretch or whatever it was going through. So each pacer kind of had their own sections as we're going through.
Yeah. Oh, that makes it tough for planning gear wise and everything. But I think that part you mentioned about getting out of your head like that is probably the most valuable advice you could pass on. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Get because I had to consciously let go of whatever expectations I brought into this. It didn't matter. You
right.
know, your entire sole purpose is to get to the next aid station with enough time to leave. That's
Yeah.
it, you know. And that really was a great mindset shift. And thankfully I had experienced. I couldn't have picked a better crew.
Right.
They're experienced ultra runners. They all have different strengths in their personalities. I mean, it really was the best team for me that I could have put together. They're the reason I finished. I mean, they truly are.
Oh, of course.
Because what I also came to realize in this distance, time and space disappeared. Like they just faded away. It didn't matter. You know,
Right.
if you tell somebody, "Oh, we're going to do 40 miles in 100-degree heat on blacktop pavement today through Tucson," most of the time, if you told me that we're doing that on this Saturday, I'm like, "Well, that's a big day," and okay, fine. And during the race, it was okay. Like it
Right.
didn't matter. Like we just got to get to the next aid station. Like that's it. And he just moved forward. That relentless forward motion,
Yep.
and that's all that mattered. And it was interesting how that it's hard to describe. Like time disappeared. It didn't matter if it was going to take 8 hours, or 12 hours or whatever. It didn't. None of it had any meaning whatsoever or weight to it or definition. It just was no, just get to the next aid station. So I got to do.
Yeah. And there was never any like time hanging over your head, like, oh my God, if you're not here by 8 p.m., that's it,
Yeah.
I'm done kind of thing.
We were enough ahead of the cutoffs.
Yeah.
Some stretches early in the race, those first couple of days where we were cutting it close. Like we only had, an hour or an hour and a half.
Right.
Again, once we got past Mount Lemon, then we were one of the things we were striving for was to be a full aid station ahead of the cutoffs,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So as we get to this aid station, that's when the last one closed.
Right.
We're a full aid station ahead, and so we didn't have those pressures of you have 3 minutes to get in and out of this one.
Right.
Um, it was just simply get to the next one. You got time, um,
Nice.
which is why that strategy of my feet on the last day of telling them like you will function today, and all you have to do is get to that aid station. That's it.
Right.
You don't have to finish the race. I just need these whatever it was again, 36 or 38 miles or whatever it was. I just need these 36 out of you. And
Yeah.
then you can stumble the rest of the way if you need to, which they did.
Right. Right.
Trust me, they did. They listened and they hurt so bad that last segment.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, we'll return to your feet here in a little bit, but I did want to touch a little bit on fueling. I mean, when
Sure,
you're, and whether it varied according to, when you're on Mount Lemon where it's cold and windy, or if you're running in 100-degree heat, how you manage to budget and how did you manage to deal with the calories,
sure.
basically? Yeah.
Well, there was a couple things that I did. One, in my pack, I had a big variety of different things to bring. I had some protein bars, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Bobos.
Oh,
They're these,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I think
I
I
had the,
think
I
they're
had the
made. I think they're made
strawberry,
up here, by the way.
okay.
Yeah.
I had the strawberry peanut butter, PB&J little one, and they're great because they're easy to eat. They're easy. I
Mhm.
use them all the time. They're delicious, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and they're like, I don't remember what they are, but like 300 calories per little sandwich. So it's great. You can eat one of those, and there's your calories for the hour, right?
Yep.
If I never eat another Bobo again for the rest of my life, I'll be perfectly fine.
Right.
By day number three, I'm like, I can't choke any more of these down. This is
Right.
right. But while we were moving, I was very aware of you need to eat. And it would just be little snacks. In fact, one of your mantras I still use while I'm out there is, bite, bite, or nibble, nibble, sip, sip, or sip, sip, nibble, nibble,
Right.
right?
Right. Yep.
And that's what it was. It was sip, sip, nibble, nibble, nibble. So, I mean, I would leave each aid station with a full, I don't even know the amount of calories I had, probably 2,000. It was way more than I needed,
Yeah.
or probably more than that. Then I guess it was more than I needed, and 4 liters of water every time. I filled up every single time, no matter what.
Yeah.
And depending on the aid stations, but most of the time I was out of water or pretty close to it. I was within the last liter. Uh, And then pretty good on food too. I think if I were to guess, I probably ate about 5,000 calories a day. Because when you get to the aid station, then it was, I mean, the aid stations were for the most part pretty great. Quesadillas or pizzas or burgers or ramen or whatever.
Yeah.
You start shoveling down this food. In fact, there were plenty of aid stations where they had the Impossible burgers. The first one goes down in 3 minutes. So then you're like, all right, now that I'm gonna go work on my feet, can I have another one? And
Right,
then they
right.
give you a second one over. So yeah, it was fueling actually went very, very well, and my stomach held up surprisingly well. I didn't have, knock on wood, I didn't have any stomach issues at all, which was
That
great.
that's remarkable. Yeah.
I was worried about it. That was, well, worried. It was something I was paying attention to. But yeah, I didn't have any stomach issues and was able to put down whatever I needed to. In that last aid station at Casablanca, Jamie brought me two little personal pizzas, or I don't know, they're about yay big. But she didn't know what toppings I was going to want because I always ordered two different kinds. I have a spicy one and then I have kind of a cheesy pesto one.
Right.
I didn't know which one he'd want, so I just brought them both. I said, "You can just give me both of them." I put them
Of
both back.
course.
I put them both back while I was sitting there working on my feet. Like it was
Right.
before bed. It was just put the whole things down, which I'm sure that is, I don't even know how many calories are in each one of those pizzas. Probably 1,000.
Yeah, but enough, right?
Yeah. So yeah, did pretty well with fueling. Did pretty well with electrolytes. It was something that I paid attention to. And then again, it just kind of happened as we got into the rhythm of what we were doing. Kind of how I was mentioning that time and space disappeared. You just ate.
Right.
I would take out a blocks and just, throw them back, or take out a protein bar and put it back because I was aware of making sure it wasn't just sugar and carbs.
Yeah.
You need to have the other two macros mixed in there, to function properly.
Sure.
So yeah, it went pretty well.
Yeah. What were you using for your hydration? I mean,
So
just
I would have my bladder would be water, and
uh-huh.
then I'd have two half-liter flasks, soft flasks in my back that were just water. And then I'd have two of these ones that would either be Liquid IV or Never Second, which were the two name brands. That
Okay.
would be electrolytes. And then the back two flasks in the back were just water to start because those were my last liter. And so then it would depend on what I needed throughout the day. So if I felt like, no, I need some more electrolytes because it's super hot outside, then we'd fill one up with some, liquid IV or whatever. Or if I just wanted the water.
Yeah.
But I had 4 liters, leaving every aid station of liquid as we're headed out the door. And then I had salt tabs too. And the salt tabs I think they were the goo salt tabs. So they have all the,
Mm,
electrolytes mixed in, and they have some caffeine, which is great.
sure.
Because that was one I ended up getting a caffeine tab at that last day as dawn was breaking on the last day, and I was fighting it. I mean, I was dead man walking, and needed a nap, and then I took an 8 minute nap, not a 5 minute nap, dirt nap, while everybody was waiting for me. And then they popped the caffeine tab, and new person, sun's up, caffeine tab, this thing.
Right. Oh, that's great. I was going to ask you, and what kind of little bits of magic that you had, and you mentioned the caffeine tab just now, which was perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
that one's kind of intuitive. Sometimes people say sometimes just brushing your teeth just
Mhm.
totally wakes you, rejuvenates you. Did you have any kind of those aha, like, bam, there's like instant jolt of quote caffeine there?
Well, the brushing your teeth is something that I picked up on, way back when, and it's a big one.
Yeah.
Where as the sun comes up, dawn is breaking. It doesn't mean the sun's up yet, but you can see the light.
Yeah.
Yeah, wash your face, brush your teeth, throw on some deodorant. I realize I haven't showered in 5 days, and deodorant really doesn't matter anyway. But it's the routine of doing that you're up for the day.
Mm,
That was one. And then one that Robbie brought besides the 5 minute naps, one that he brought to the table that I thought worked, that little nugget of magic, was as the sun goes down, right at dusk, right as the sun is just down, take a 5 minute nap, right? Because the sun's down. So now it's, instead of fighting that, it's nighttime, your body naturally circadian rhythm is starting to shut down. Take that 5 minute nap and reset. And now
yeah.
you're ready for the night run. That really worked.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a good little tip that seemed to work pretty well. So we did that for 5 nights or whatever it was, 4 nights.
Yeah. Great nugget right there.
Mhm.
All right. Did you cover more ground at night than during the day, given the extreme temperatures? Or was it just kind of a matter of you kind of went ad hoc?
Yeah, we didn't have the luxury of picking and choosing. It was just here, off we go. I will say on coming out of the loop, we knew the second to last day was going to be hot, or third to last day, I guess. We're out in the south of Tucson in the desert out there, super, super exposed, right? There's no shade until you get into the foothills. But we had about, I don't even know, probably 40 miles of very, very exposed desert, and we knew it was going to be
Hmm.
hot. And so Robbie and I were going back and forth on when we should start. We should start at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. because we got to beat the heat. And my response was, we're not going to beat the heat, man. Like,
Right.
unless we're doing this at night, we're not going to beat the heat. So we compromised and ended up leaving it, I think it was 7:30 or 8:30. So we compromised and left at 8 o'clock. Um, but yeah, we kept trucking. It didn't matter day or night.
Yeah.
What we would do is for our uh, ramen and refuel stations, which were the smaller, kind of more remote ones,
Hmm.
we would try to spend 45 minutes. That was all we allowed ourselves at those ones. Enough time to refill with water, sit down, actually eat, and shove some food in your face. But no, we're not wasting time here. So 45 minutes, that was the goal, and off you go.
Yeah.
And then for our sleep station, we tried to keep it to less than 4 hours because it's an hour of, or a half hour of get undressed, change your clothes because you're sopping wet from sweat, and then try to either make it an hour and a half or a 3 hour nap because you have those 90-minute sleep cycles, right? So we tried to keep it as best we could to those time frames, and then out the door in a half hour and try to keep it at 4 hours. But each aid station as we came into, we had a game plan going into
Right.
it, which was good because I mean, aid stations, you know it. I mean, I mean, all of a sudden you sit down, it feels great. I'm going to take a 3 hour nap. And then, you spent a whole day there,
Right.
because
Right.
everybody's there and you're talking and you're sharing stories and it's, camaraderie. And yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't, we
It's
didn't have
comfortable. It's like trying to get out of bed in the morning kind of thing.
that.
It's like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so nice to stay there. So, yeah, I mean, even 4 hours is a long time there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no,
But we had to mix
you
in
use it.
naps.
Yeah, yeah,
We
absolutely.
had to, yeah, the 4 hours you have to. And if you do a half hour before, a 3 hour nap, and a half hour after, I mean, it's really utilizing your time. And then trying to accomplish multiple things at once, right? So if the medics are out there taking care of my feet and popping my blisters and taping them up, I'm shoveling food at the same time.
Right.
So you're doing two at once, or you're filling up your water as you're doing this. So you're trying to get more than one thing done at once so that when you are resting, you're resting. You're not on your phone. You're not talking to people. I mean, you're sleeping, or at least your eyes are shut and you're laying down.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. One of the things that kind of amazed me about this race was the finish rate.
Yeah,
I
it's like
mean,
two
it was like,
thirds or three-fourths, something like that.
yeah, which, you'd think that, race like that, the attrition rate would be more like a 75% DNF rate,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was because the people you think there were just really well prepared, or the aid stations, combination of all that. I mean, and it was a good number of people in this race. This wasn't,
Mhm.
just like 100 people and 75 of them finished. So,
No, I think it was over 300 that started. I don't know the exact number, but
yeah,
it was over 300. I think it's a combination of all of it, really. I think it was obviously the people. It again, it takes a certain kind of crazy to say, "Oh, 300 miles? Yeah, that sounds great. Let's
yeah,
do it."
right.
So I think just the sign up, eliminated some of that DNF. And I
Hmm.
also think too that the very first 2 days of the race, because the first 45 to 60 miles, it was tough. I mean, you're in and out of a canyon outside of Superior. I mean, it was not an easy stretch. And that first couple of days, I heard one runner goes, "Man, this race is taking some souls," to quote David Goggins again.
Right.
Um, Once you got past those first couple of days, that's where I mean, I don't, and again, I don't know the numbers of how accurate this is, but it felt like once we got past the first 2 days, there were less DNFs, right? Once you got past, say, the first 100 miles or
So,
whatever it
so
was.
the first 100 miles kind of weeded out
Yeah, I
the
think
ones
so.
that, for whatever reason, but then after that, everybody
Yeah, I
stuck it
think
out.
I
Yeah.
think Mount Lemon was probably that point. I think if you got to Mount Lemon to the
Right.
top, you were going to finish this thing.
Wow. Now, that's impressive. So
Yeah, it
what do you
was.
think, Kelly's the draw to running a 300-mile race? I mean, as I always said, I was blown away when a 200-mile race became a thing and now people are talking about, like you were like, oh, 100-mile race is a speed race now. I'm like, what? It's like, how did that happen? But what is the attraction for most people, you think, to go out and challenge themselves for 300?
Well, I think for me specifically, I mean, I'll talk about that. There's a couple of different answers to that question because I've thought about this a lot in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
One is the physical side of things. Again, it plays to my strengths. I love hiking, I love mountains, I love backpacking and doing all those things. And that's really what this is. It's more that style than it is a speed race, right? I mean, people can finish javelina in whatever the course record is, 13 hours or whatever it is. Like, ain't nobody
right.
finishing this in 13 hours. Like, that's just not going to
Sure.
happen.
Yeah,
So that's something that I thoroughly enjoy is that, and what I told a couple of my friends coming in is that one of the things that I think helped me, one of to finish this is that every time I go out on a long hike or a long run or a long something, especially when you're out in the middle of nowhere, as soon as I'm back at the truck, I wish I was back out. And it doesn't matter how hard
right,
it was, it doesn't matter how long it was. As soon as it's over, I'm like, man, I should have gone out further, you know?
right,
Now you're in a week long stretch of this of that emotion, and that really played to it like, oh well, you got your wish, you
right.
got to the next aid station, you got to keep going, like you're not finished. Until finally at the end of the week, I was like, okay, I'm ready to be done. Like I'm good now. Got my fill.
No,
Uh,
no ideas of let's do 400 now, right?
that particular day, no, but I
Yeah,
could see four. That'd be pretty cool. So that's the one part for me is that I thoroughly enjoy being out there in the middle of nowhere with other like-minded people that you
right.
meet. I mean, it really was some camaraderie out there from people that I didn't ever met before. And then the other side of it is the emotional side of things. I mean, man, there were some stretches there where I was as raw of a human being as I have ever been. The day before, it would have been the second to last night, right before I had the conversation with my feet.
Yeah,
We're coming into the Oak Tree aid station, and coming into that aid station, there's a good stretch of climbing it. I don't know how far it is, a couple 3 miles, and it's not super steep, but it's this, and it doesn't stop. And we're trying to hurry because we're behind where we thought we were going to be. So, and my feet are not cooperating. And so I'm making a mental effort, like, no, we're gonna push this hill. Like we're gonna power hike, so to speak, up this hill. And Jamie called me just to say goodnight because I don't know what time it was, but it was nighttime. And I said, hey, I got to call you back in 0.15. Like, because I knew this peak was done in 0.15. So I got to call you back. So get up to the top, call her back. And our conversation was short and sweet. It was just saying goodnight. I know you're going to make it there. You keep on trucking. And at the very end of this 30-second conversation, she said, I'm so proud of you. I lost it, man. Like I started crying and my lip was quivering and I couldn't help it. And I'm with two of my buddies and I'm like trying to hide it from them for the first 30 seconds. I'm sitting here crying. And so finally I went, why am I hiding this? Like this is a beautiful moment of me just like I am as raw of a human as I maybe have ever been, where there was no pretense. There was no trying to hide it anymore. It was just like, man, I love that woman, and I gotta get to Casablanca to see her tomorrow.
yeah,
Um, it was pretty amazing, and I think that emotion or that level of being able to have those emotions, I can only get on night number five of a crazy 300-mile race. You know what I
right.
mean? I don't know that I can get there to that place in any other setting because there's always a reservation or something in your normal day-to-day life. But all
Yeah,
that gets stripped away. And so that's something that I truly appreciated discovering when I was out there in the middle of the desert. At,
yeah. That is the most David Clark-esque kind of thing that could happen to you out there, you
yeah,
know?
it
You
was
talked
amazing.
about, digging into those raw emotions, but what is the value to that?
Oh, I think it makes you appreciate, for me anyhow, it makes you appreciate everything. I mean, I love Jamie more than I did having done this race. If that's, I think that's how I can explain it.
Yeah,
or allow myself or be more appreciative of my body and more appreciative of my transplant and where I've come from because I got to that place of complete rawness. I don't think that's a word, but
It's
um
good enough. Yeah.
yeah, but it's because I got there, everything else is more vibrant uh and in tune with me, I think is the benefit of that. And I really don't know that I would have experienced that had I not done this race.
That's beautiful, brother. That's so cool. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much to add to that. That sums it up so well. I mean, that's what getting down to that raw level's all about is that there's nothing to add, so to speak.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's talk more corporeal or whatever. I'm also thinking like rawosity or how do we make
Awesome.
that
I like it.
rawness, whatever. But but more the corporal, yeah, as of the body. But your feet have had some lasting impacts there. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, that's been
They're
kind
still hurting. I mean, there's some pretty gnarly pictures, and it wasn't just the blisters. Don't get me wrong, I had blisters, but blisters are blisters, right? I
sure,
mean, they hurt, don't get me wrong, but you can manage through it. It's just like I told one of my non-runner friends at work, I went, it's just pain,
right,
right? Yeah, it hurts. Okay. But they still function. My feet were starting to not function the way that they're supposed to. And I kind of described that gritty liquid quicksand kind of fluid. Yesterday was the first day that I wore normal shoes. I've been to the urgent care twice. They took lots of x-rays, no fractures, at least that's what they tell me. And what I ended up having to do was taking a pair of my old Hokas from last year's, ones that are dead. And I cut a huge hole on the inside by my big toe so my foot would fit. And that's what I've been wearing for 2 weeks
right.
uh, because my foot wouldn't fit in my regular shoes, so to speak. They're getting better slowly. I wish they would.
Getting back to normal shoe size again.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
again, I'm in my normal shoes yesterday. I'm going to do them again today. I'm going to bring my holy hokas to work just in case.
the holy
Uh,
hocus. That
the
sounds like
holy
what
hokas.
the Pope wears, you know?
Right. The holy
Or
hokas.
is this too soon to talk about that? Okay, never mind.
Uh, and so I'm going to bring those to work just in case, but they're getting better. But I also have an appointment with a podiatrist on Monday because I want him to take, or him or her, I don't know what I have. I want them to take a look at it for me,
Right.
make sure that there's no actual damage in there. Because there's some tingling sensations in my toes. I have huge, bigger than silver dollar size calluses on the balls of my feet that are
Wow.
still there. And underneath, it wouldn't be my pinky toe, it's the one next to it, whatever that toe that number is for. There's squishy parts underneath the ball of my feet. So there's some sort of contusion that's still in there.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna let them, maybe work out or I don't know. Hopefully fix me up because I'll tell you what, I have some serious FOMO, fear of missing out with all of these people who I've ran with during that race and my run club, and everybody's out there doing all this fun stuff, and I'm wearing my holy hokas from the sidelines, going, "You guys are doing great. I'd love to be out there with you," but
Oh,
nope.
welcome to my world. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's fake, man. I don't want to be in that world. I want to be
No,
back up
I
in the
don't blame
mountains.
you. I don't recommend it to anybody, but yeah, I mean, I'm always amazed when you hear stories about people do a race like that and say, "Oh yeah, I was running again the next day or 2 days late,
Oh, there was a
whatever."
woman here in town, Laura's her name, and we had trained together a few times. We did the Mount Lemon stuff. She did a 20 miler like 2 days later or whatever it was, or 3 days later with her daughter. And I'm going, holy. And it wasn't like a 20-mile stroll. Like
Right.
she was moving. She was doing like 9 or 10 minute miles. I'm like, what are you crazy?
Jeez, no
No
kidding.
way.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she did great. She's a beast.
obviously. Yeah. So, what are you thinking next up for you?
I get that question a lot.
Of
I don't
course.
know.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so there's a couple of things that are going to happen. I've got some races here in town that I want to do. There's a triple 50, which are three 50-mile races, all on the Arizona Trail. So they're all, well, majorities on the Arizona Trail, but they're all kind of sort of the same sections as what we just did on the Arizona Monster. I've always had that one in the back of my mind, so I think I'm gonna do that this year. That's in the winter time. But I do think these 200 plus mile races are gonna kind of be my jam. I think,
Uh-oh.
I think those are the ones, and maybe I don't know, if, one a year or one every other year. I don't know how often. I do know that I have to make sure that next year in 2026, well, I got to do a 2 week vacation with my wife and get her to France. She's been wanting to go since she was a kid. So Jamie, it's public, it's on record now. We'll get there in 2026, and make that the priority versus my week-long race. If I can fit one in around that trip, then we'll do it. But Paris is the priority number one for next year.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I was going to say before, not everybody says, yeah, I've got 10 days off a year. I'm going to take most of it by running a 300-mile race. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep.
not everybody does that. So, you could go to France and actually have a real vacation, or you could just say, hey, I'm going to run across France for a while or something,
Right? Well, yeah, no, that wouldn't work. I did tell her though that like I thoroughly, and she knows this, I thoroughly enjoy running in new cities, right? I feel like
Oh, yeah.
you can experience it differently, right? And so you get up early, kind of before the hustle and the bustle, and you go run down. And maybe I don't even have routes planned most of the time. I just make turns, hopefully find my way back. So she'll know that I'll go do some of those runs, but her qualification is no, it's like 10 miles or less on those runs. Like we're not spending
Right.
all day, and no, I'm not allowed. She's told me I'm not allowed to run up and down the Eiffel Tower for some sort of strawberry.
Well, especially if they charge you each time you do it. I don't know how it
Yeah, but
works,
if
but
there's a local legend to be had, I mean that'd be pretty cool.
yeah. No, that is actually one of the things I really love to do the most. And, I don't know if you heard, I did a whole podcast episode on my trip to
Sure.
Europe this past October, where the first half of the trip was a cruise with my 90-something-year-old parents. So we'd be on these excursions, and I would tell the bus driver, I said, would you leave me off 10 to 12 kilometers from the ship? And I'm going to run the rest of the way. And it would actually end up being more than that because I would go, like I say, just go wander wherever I wanted to and see a lot more than anybody else gets to see and just go wander, see these places. And we were in Madeira and the Canary Islands, which are all out in the Atlantic Ocean. And then we were in Morocco and then got to Spain. And then once we got off the ship, I got rid of my family and I rented a car for the next 10 days. And I was in southern France, the little teeny tiny country of Andorra, which is up in
Yeah,
the Pyrenees.
be there. Yeah.
And are you going to be there?
Well, I want to. That's on my list of things to see is to get down there. For whatever reason, I've always wanted to go to Andorra because it's like the size of Tucson. You know, like I don't
Maybe
know.
not
I've
even.
always wanted-
No, it is literally 40 miles across at its widest point,
Oh,
and the
Tucson's
entire
bigger.
country has 70,000 people.
Right.
And
Well, I knew people wise we were bigger, but I meant space
yeah,
wise. I realized it was 40 miles. That's it. Wow, that's pretty
at its
tiny.
widest. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I highly, highly recommend it. And I know we're getting far away here in this recording here, but I had the best time in this little teeny tiny country. It was kind of a combination of this really chaotic European city and Monte Carlo because it's a tax haven over there. So it's got all these fancy stores and tobacco shops everywhere because, it's one of their major exports and a ski resort, because you got all these ski areas there and all jammed into this little narrow valley. It's just insane. And it's breathtaking. And the funny thing, you mentioned the Eiffel Tower, where their iconic building is this 18-story stainless steel pyramid. It looks like the Transamerica Pyramid. And I thought being in this tax haven country, oh, that must be like a bank building or an insurance company. And no, it turns out it was an 18-story spa.
Oh boy. Okay.
And it had inside the craziest things, the Japanese bath with the floating grapefruits in it, and the Aztec bath with the floating lemons in it, and a whole room just with the walls were made of ice. And
That's really cool.
oh, the thing was insane. I mean, and just and that's their iconic building there you see from everywhere in
Right.
Andorra. So,
That's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll
and the
check it out.
drive there is cool as hell. I mean, it's these switchbacks and and then you go through this tunnel from France and the Pyrenees. It's like, I don't know, like 10 kilometers long tunnel.
Wow.
Yeah. And cool as hell. And then,
Yeah.
but yeah, so every day I would just get up in the morning and I would go run all over the place in all these cities in
Best.
northern Spain and so Carcassonne, France, great place to run around. So,
Yeah.
that'll be a great trip, and Jamie will actually get to enjoy it
Yes,
more than
you'll enjoy
dealing
it.
with the stinky feet and
Correct.
whatever else in
You
the
know,
middle of the night.
me who hasn't showered in 6 days. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, good. Well, hey, so Kelly, what have we missed here with this whole journey of yours?
I think we covered it all. I mean, we didn't talk about the finish line, I guess, for a little bit. I mean, I
Yeah,
again,
well, that's important. Yeah, what's that
yeah,
like?
what ended up happening. So the last 16 miles after I made it to that last aid station, we had one segment left to go, and I was hurting. We got up in the middle of the night. We left at midnight. Our plan was 8 hours, so we were going to do half, 2 miles an hour. That was the
Right,
plan because I knew I was going to be shuffling, and we weren't in any hurry. We were not worried about cutoffs. The cutoff wasn't until 4 p.m. And so, but I was struggling. That sleep deprivation caught up. I was stumbling through. My mind was not in the right place. I wasn't those first 8 miles of the 16. I really struggled. Emotionally, I wasn't there. My body wasn't there. I just wanted to be done. I just wanted to lay down. I just wanted to stop. And I think part of it, looking back in hindsight, was I knew I had 20 hours to get this done. You know what I mean? I knew the
right.
cutoff wasn't until 4 o'clock. So I had all the time in the world. You can take a 4 hour nap right here and be just fine.
Yeah,
I think that was part of it. Once the sun came, and at this point, there were five of us going. So Molly, my pacer, was leading the charge.
right,
And it was me, Robbie, and then another guy named Mike. So I guess four of us total. Another guy named Mike that we'd picked up and been kind of leapfrogging with the last couple of days. Uh, and so as the sun came up again, Robbie had me pop a caffeine pill, and the sun came up, and then it was like, okay. And I knew I'd done all these sections before, so I knew the last 3 miles of the race were on a road where you're getting back to town, right? It's a little 2-lane road that we're
right,
getting. But there's a good climb leading up to that. You had to climb kind of over these foothills and out of this valley. And I knew once we got to that peak, once we summited those foothills, that was it, right? And then we're downhill, and then it's the road, and then we're there. And so really started to actually feel good again. And then, as you know, when you get to the end of these races, the pain kind of goes away, right? My feet didn't hurt when I hit the pavement. And
that's a
then,
good thing.
yeah, well, because your mind, the pain's there, the feet are still broken, you know what I mean? But your mind is now finally focused on something else. I
Right.
was on the finish line. And then probably about a mile from the finish, man, I lost it again. I was so overwhelmed with emotions from just it was gratitude is the biggest one, and not just gratitude for the race itself and my journey. It really wasn't about me. It was about everybody else. It was about the crew that helped me. It was about the people that I knew were waiting for me at the finish line. My dad was there. Our youngest son Ryan was there. I mean, friends were there that had drove all the way to Patagonia, which is still an hour and a half from Tucson or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um, that were there. It was amazing, and the fact that I know that there are other transplant recipients out there and other people in substance abuse and in the middle of their addiction that I hope are listening to this specific podcast because man, the life on the other side of this and being able to cross those finish lines, and I don't expect you to do 300 miles. I mean, that's my thing, and
yeah,
it's enough. But whatever it is in their life that's that goal, man, you can get there. And I just proved it to myself that I could get there. And man, I was snot bubbles and ugly crying and lip quivering. So if you see any of the pictures of me at the finish line, I mean, I just look well, and I don't know if you saw my before and after pictures. My
oh
before
yeah.
picture is, full of excitement and ready to go. And then the after picture, my eyes are bat puffy, and because I've been crying for an hour coming down this, my lips are chapped. I mean, man, that finish line was amazing coming around. It really
Oh,
was. I mean, amazing is the only word I can think of.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've always said I think the best moment in all of sports is that last, the golden hour at the Leadville 100.
Sure, I
And
bet.
but
Yeah,
I could see where this is that, obviously you don't have the same kind of crowds there, but still it's magnified so much. Everybody's got a personal story of how they get to the finish line in Leadville, but You've got a personal story, but then you said the stories of all those people around who either contributed or are being motivated, influenced, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I could see how that would all come crashing down on you there during that last approach to the finish line.
Absolutely. And because it goes back to that rawness, right? Where you didn't, I don't have any defense to hold off these emotions. You know what I mean? Like in my everyday life, I call it the phrase that I use, not to quote Dave Matthews, but is there's a space between me and my emotions. There always is, and which is a good thing in your everyday life, right? You don't want to
Right,
overreact or underreact. You just want to, observe and make a decision on what you want to do next. That gap disappeared during that race. There was no space. It was there. Here's a thought about Jamie. I can't wait to hug Jamie at the finish line, and out come the tears.
right.
I was there was no space. It was just I was an embodiment of whatever emotion I was holding at that particular moment, which is
Yeah.
pretty. I
Yep.
don't experience that very often.
No, and I guess maybe the final thing we should mention is just how much Jamie has put up with you between, between your quote previous life that she
Yeah,
hung in there through all the
yeah,
crap that then, and now you say, hey, look, I'm fixed that. Now look what I'm doing to you,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. She's pretty amazing to have the not only put up with but support me and make it all possible is pretty man, pretty amazing.
Yep. Well, she deserves that trip to France.
I agree. I agree. I'm gonna have to learn some French. I know how to say croissant and French fry. That's about
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say those are about the most important things. I mean,
Right.
merci and I was going to say Chardonnay, but probably not you.
No,
But
no,
no,
Jamie doesn't
but yeah,
Chardonnay.
but
That's
yeah,
me.
croissant or I don't know, escargot, whatever.
There you go.
Well, great, Kelly. Hey, thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your story and getting all the rawosity or rawness or whatever out
I
here.
like that. We're gonna use that word.
Okay, you got it. Well, I already contributed, I think, RFM to you there, my relentless forward motion. You
Yep.
brought that in there too. So you're welcome to all of those. So, but thank
Perfect.
you
I
so
appreciate
much.
it.
What an
Absolutely.
inspirational journey here, and glad we had the chance to cross paths at the American Heroes Run and continue to do so. If I can ever get my own goddamn foot working for me again, I want to come down and do your Mount whatever it's
Oh
called
yeah,
down there.
Tumamoc 10 every March, man. We'll get you down here.
Yeah,
And you can walk. It's all right. You don't have to run. You take your
no,
time. I'm
whatever.
sure
No, I want to get up and down that because I know you know every nook and cranny and crack in the pavement and whatever there. So,
it's
want to
true.
come down and experience that too.
Very cool. Anytime you want to come down, you got a place to stay.
All right. Appreciate that so much. And you're always welcome at the American Heroes Run anytime, of course.
All right. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
You bet, man. Have a great day.